sports fans. Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen, on a Wednesday. Lots more news to come around the corner in the NFL. Not to mention the NBA trades. It's been fiery as we get geared up for Super Bowl 60 this weekend. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show. We're live in Denver. Wishing we could be out in Santa Clara today, wherever and however you may be watching it. Thanks for making us part of your day. Just about in the half hour, former NFL safety Denzel Johnson is going to be joining us. Played with Tennessee and had a bunch of spurts with other teams as well. We're going to pick his brain, and TCU alumni. It's going to be an exciting show here for us today. So, as we mentioned before, San Francisco is such a beautiful spot, beautiful place. I've only been there once in my lifetime. Absolutely loved it. Loved being around the pier. Loved being around a lot of different shops and restaurants and even around in the city. And like I said before, Fisherman's Wharf, amazing. Ghirardelli's Chocolate Factory, amazing. And even when you start going into a lot of the emporiums like Ripley's, believe it or not, and a bunch of places, it's a beautiful area. Definitely cold when you get closer into the waters, because especially with the wind. And that's what it was known for. San Francisco, if you can remember years ago with Candlestick, how windy it got in that place, whether it was a Giants baseball game or it was the Niners trying to kick field goals. It was absolutely outrageous. But Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, it's going to be beautiful. Seahawks and Patriots, rematch of Super Bowl 49. I'm all for it. So, as we basically get ready here for the show and for our great guests coming up aboard, so lots of news that has stirred around, and it has to involve the Las Vegas Raiders. This just ended up getting posted by Jay Glazer. And so right now the reports, and Raider fans are not going to like this. But here's the thing. This is what the Pittsburgh Steelers should have done before the season started. And now this is happening with the Raiders, with Max Crosby. So reports from Jay Glazer, Max Crosby appears to be done in Vegas. Boy, wouldn't I just wonder what in the world happened? So I could tell you what happened. Few things are clear. When Pete Carroll came in, clearly you wanted this organization to have a changed culture. But unfortunately, it only led them to having the number one overall pick in the draft and potentially Fernando Mendoza. The Raiders have an opportunity here, after just hearing this news of Max Crosby, to potentially get capital, which is what I've been harping about. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they love defense more than anything else. The only problem with it was a up, down, weird and wonky season. And even though Aaron Rodgers, it may not have looked like it was a bad season for him, but it was also not a great season in the end. And Aaron only had to do what he could with the state that he was in physically, at his age, and the Steelers, all they did was win games over 500 and then eventually be knocked out in the playoffs once again in the first round. Don't you just love it every time when that happens? And now it's like, where do they go and what do they do from here? The Raiders have an opportunity to do with what the Pittsburgh Steelers didn't do, and that is you need to open up the opportunity of trading away Max Crosby. Because here's a few things that are true about this. Their offensive line outside of Colton Miller and Jackson Powers Johnson, I do not trust. And you're trying to instill a healthy run game with Ashton Ginty, your rookie from last year. And there was barely a run game. Geno Smith, pick central, always throwing interceptions. And then there's not even a top-tier wide receiver other than your two dual tight ends, Michael Mayer and Brock Bowers. I mean, yeah, you'll have Trey Tucker, but he feels a lot more like a specialty, more of an X factor. So you got to have a star receiver in this building. You got to have a healthy offensive line to work on the run game. And in fact, here's what's funny. Both teams did this in the same division. Actually, three. Kansas City, as you know, they moved on from Tyreek Hill, but they still had Travis Kelce. They did not have a strong enough wide receiving core until you got up into Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy, and then even Tyquan Thornton. So there were lots of options that the Kansas City Chiefs would have, but the problem was offensive line, especially the tackles, was going to be too much to have to handle. Then look at Denver. I mean, Denver, not a lot of people literally looked at Cortland Sutton as that guy, but he is. And then Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, Pat Bryant, all they needed to do was to solidify their offensive line, and that's what they did. I mean, Quinn Miners, Garrett Bowles, lots of really good upfront, strong players that you're going to need to protect your franchise quarterback and get your run game going. And that's also the reasons they drafted R.J. Harvey and they signed J.K. Dobbins. They needed to have a dual threat at the tailback. The Chargers did this just the past year ago after this year, and they fixed up on their offensive line. They went and got they had Rashawn Slater and they had Joe Alt. They picked Joe Alt as their first pick. And they didn't even have a big-time stud wide receiver because Keenan Allen only left for a year. And Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnston, all it was the trust belief factor of Jim Harbaugh. The Raiders right now do not have a stud receiver other than the fact that they have a great tight end. And Brock Bowers is arguably the best tight end that you're seeing right now in his rising stock. And he was the best tight end in the country out of college. So the other thing is, defensively for the Raiders, lots of things went south. I mean, first of all, Christian Wilkins, not exactly the guy in the locker room that you hoped would have kept the team stable. The other part is secondaries. It wasn't released great. They were giving up too many big plays. There wasn't enough time for them in order for them to really get the offense back out onto the field because they were just getting mollywopped everywhere. So the Raiders potentially getting Clint Kubiak could be a really good thing, but they also need to get a smart defensive coordinator to at least get the offense back out onto the field. And it sounds to me their first pick in the draft is going to be the youngster from Indiana, Fernando Mendoza, which there's no question. Then with this Max Crosby situation, I could get draft capital for him. And I could also get more money in order to spend on the pieces and on the positions that you know are a sign of need right now. That's what I would be doing. Originally, I would have traded the first pick, but I know it's hard to sell Raider fans on that idea. I would have traded the first pick and eventually got more picks because I need to fix an offensive line. I need to get another running back to help with Ashton Ginty up and onto the run game, even if I don't sign somebody on free agency. But I also need to get another receiver. you got to have enough money to spend to go and get a veteran in here. And that's one of the other things, because you would have a quarterback for the right now. I know Geno is not a great pickup. I understand that, but he's a quarterback of right now. He's not your quarterback of the future, and we all know that. But we know this draft is competitive, but it's not as deep when it comes to the quarterback position. Next year will be, because you're going to have a lot. Dante Moore, and Lenore Sellers. You've got a lot of really good quarterbacks. John Mateer potentially, or Arch Manning. There's lots of options. But the Raiders really have to come to grips with themselves and figure out how they can build their consistency after the culture they've just been a part of. It doesn't really work as well. So that's something that the Raiders really, really have to figure that out. But I thought it was interesting news. Max Crosby, and you got to think, that conversation with Pete Carroll up and into the building that led to Pete Carroll's firing and him storming off because they were shutting him down for the remainder of the season. Max Crosby, I think, is just kind of done with the circus, and I don't blame him. I don't blame with how players feel coming from this organization, and I've lived there for about my entire life. I've only been here for 2 years in Denver. I know exactly with what Vegas is built and what it runs. And losing is not something that is built in this very town. Not while you've got a hockey team with a Stanley Cup championship and have been to 2 of them, and you got a WNBA squad that now already has 3 in their existence. You got to be willing to be better, and you got to be willing to do better in amongst all of this. So I feel as though Clint Kubiak can be the guy, but he does need a right-hand man. So that's part of the reasons where teams were very pick and choosy. When it came to coaches, when it came to coordinators, I mean, you're even seeing a lot of these coaches coming from the NFL back into college because coordinators are very valuable. I mean, I just watched Arthur Smith go to Ohio State, and now he's paired up with Ryan Day and Matt Patricia. Because Ohio State, they've got something really, really well there. But that's why you got to really value up into these coaching spots. And remember, not every single one of them could be fitted to be an NFL coach. And it happens. It's just the same as you would say 65% of the league don't really find their franchise quarterbacks. It's not that simple and it's not that easy. But you've got to have the right person in the building. I couldn't even believe it. And here's the thing. The Steelers, when TJ Watt almost coming up to contract day, they should have traded him away for more picks. And you would have gotten Abdul Carter. You would have fixed up your offensive line. But Pittsburgh was too defensively proud to really think of that idea. Because you got to think, you got to let that running back from Iowa, Caleb Johnson, work on your run game along with Jaylen Warren. And then at the same time, who's your quarterback? I mean, if Will Howard is the real deal, I got to see it. But at this point, Pittsburgh, you may not be comfortable with rebuilding, but you need a lot of retooling and some juice. Because this whole roster is going to get old very fast. That's the part in which that everybody has to come to grips with. We got a great show here today on a Super Bowl 60 week. Denzel Johnson, former NFL safety, around the corner. Really excited about it. Well, folks, what a fun thing. So because San Francisco Gold Rush, home the Niners, one of the striking gold rushes and one of the most delicious whiskey brands in the California NorCal area, in the home and the heart of San Francisco Bay. That is out of Californian redwood beans. And one of the master blenders, Montgomery Paulson, spent 25 years winemaking at top wineries in Napa and Sonoma countries. And Monty's passion for spirits and wine began in the early 1970s. His family's Pat Paulson Vineyard in Sonoma, where he was active in all areas of his family business. So he has always been on the grind. And one of his striking, the most amazing, delicious whiskeys, Gold Bar Whiskey. the original. And every tale is told in a Gold Bar whiskey. Also, the Gold Bar, the iconic Lady of Fortune coin that you would get for your Gold Bar whiskey coin feature. It's a symbol of good luck and prosperity. And no matter where it may be, promotion, whether after a match, even just like this year in Super Bowl, you want to enjoy the golden taste of Gold Bar Premium Blend Whiskey, finished in California casking. Very delicious. Every story has a tale to tell. Check it out for your very self. And check out their website and look up all of their best specials at goldbarwhiskey.com.
Looking for a show with the best takes and opinions? Want a show with the best coverage around the world of sports? Jam-packed with an all-star interview lineup? Then the best place to find it all, sports and entertainment, is right here. Join Jake Silva on the Snake Sports Talk Show, presented by SeatGeek and BetUS. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
Welcome on back to the Snake Sports Talk Show, live in Denver. Super Bowl 60 week in Santa Clara, California, and San Francisco. You know, it's funny. I look at the NFL's Pro Bowl games, and I got to be honest with you. In the last few years, have really just have not been a fan. And we feel like the Pro Bowl has not been the same as it once was. Everybody will tell you. So Shedeur Sanders, which again, I think, in my opinion, if he gets Todd Monken to help him, to structurize him, and to honestly be a better quarterback amongst everything that's been going on against him, then I think Shedeur Sanders has a real clear-cut path. But I got to be honest. I mean, you throw a pick in the Pro Bowl in a flag football game, and you're basically telling yourself, you know, I got exactly what it takes. Well, you just threw a pick in a Pro Bowl. Imagine what it would be like throwing a pick in the Super Bowl or in the playoffs. Now, remember, quarterbacks make mistakes all the time, but you can't afford to end up making mistakes like that eventually gets you knocked out of the playoffs or gets you knocked out of your chances to make the playoffs. So I understand the Cleveland Browns. It could very much be a little bit of a circus from this point forward, but I think there's just got to be a lot of structurization in this organization more than anything else. And Andrew Berry, he's put together his chips. But the real thing that I want to talk about is just what are we going to do with the Pro Bowl games? It's not the same as it once was where players were playing for something. It's like in Major League Baseball when you play the All-Star game. Each of those has an opportunity of home field advantage, whether American or National League in the World Series. And who wouldn't want home field advantage? Sure, you're going to have 2 games to start with and then 3 games on the road, but then you're back in the final 2. You got a home field advantage, and even throughout the postseason. So there's something to play for. But I got to be honest, like this Pro Bowl hasn't really given me anything. And it sucks because we've had a lot of really great players who have been Pro Bowlers, and many of them that made the Pro Bowl aren't even representing in the Pro Bowl because there's no point. All it is now is it's mostly just another accolade for your Hall of Fame, your resume. That's really all that it's come down to. And the only thing that I like about the Pro Bowl is the fun activities and just the challenges. The game itself is whatever. There's no meaning. There's nothing to play for. So in my opinion, why would we even have the Pro Bowl games in the first place anymore? It used to be in Hawaii. It felt a lot like vacation, but now it just doesn't really have any meaning towards it. And that's the sad part. So I don't know with what you got to do with the Pro Bowl games. I really, really don't. In my opinion, I think you should honestly stick to, the fun activities. Because that stuff, I think, is fun. You get a chance to see the deep ball throw. You get a chance to see the most amount of catches from a receiver. Also, because you got the scouting combine to run the 40s all the time. And then at the same, the high jumps, but also, you got to think about running backs with their IQs and their vision and so on and so forth. So it's a fun time to be at if you're a fan and you watch these players growing up or watching the game. It's always a fun time to go to. And you get to meet with a lot of them. So it's, I just think with this Pro Bowl game, I don't know what you got to do with it. I think truthfully, you got to figure out a way to just get rid of this game and just make it more of a fun event. If you're there in, if you're basically there to just hang out, vacation, do a lot of fun stuff, that's really all it is. But eventually they're going to have to come to grips, and they're going to have to come to terms with what they need to do with the Pro Bowl, because it's just worthless. It's meaningless. Unless you're doing the skills challenges, it's fun, but take it to Vegas. Take it to Florida. Take it to Hawaii. It's supposed to be vacation areas. It should not honestly be in like Minnesota. No disrespect. But in place, you want to be on vacation, man. That's really what the Pro Bowl was all about, and it meant something. But right now, it's meaningless. I mean, I just don't know what you got to do with it. Time for the news.
And now, here we go. Hey everyone, it's story time. This is the Hot Press.
Oh, aside from the NFL, we had a lot of activity in the NBA. So the Dallas Mavericks, boy, it just gets better and better from here. So remember last year with the iconic Luka Doncic trade that sent him to the Lakers for Anthony Davis. Well, Anthony Davis is on the move again. And the Dallas Mavericks, they have agreed to trade away 10-time All-Star big man Anthony Davis to the Washington Wizards in an 8-player blockbuster designed to maximize Dallas's flexibility to build around rookie star Cooper Flatt. So they sent Davis and guards Jaden Hardy, D'Angelo Russell, and Dante Exum to the Wizards in exchange for Chris Middleton, A.J. Johnson, Malachi Branham, Marvin Badgley III, 2 first-round picks, and 3 second-rounders. Good Lord. I think it's insane. So after Nico Harrison, and I talked with close people that are very close and they know Nico. It's very pressurizing, and it's not a good feeling in Dallas at all, because at this point, you picked up Anthony Davis for Luka Doncic, and now you're shipping him away after Luka Doncic. So something's not right in Dallas, and I understand with Anthony Davis, injuries, availability, because he is coming up in an age, man, but it's just bad. It's just real bad up in Dallas. And I don't even know what you got to feel if you're a Mavericks fan. Because at this point, they got a lot of really good players. I mean, Chris Middleton, he's not as a sexy pickup, but Marvin Badgley, a couple of other really good situational players at 2 first-round picks and 3 seconds. I mean, the picks, unfortunately for the NBA, it's not as great, but like they don't hold a higher extended value than what the NFL does with some of their draft picks. But the NBA, they could always use this as leverage to go and get a specific player if they really wanted to. So, but Anthony Davis going to Washington, yay. Yeah, this one's going to be interesting. More than anything. More sources in the NBA as the Philadelphia 76ers, and I kind of feel bad for this a little bit, but it is what it is. The 76ers have agreed to trade away guard Jared McCain to the Oklahoma City Thunder for the 26th first-round pick by the Houston Rockets, 3 second-round picks. So Jared McCain, the 16th overall pick in 2024, was averaging 6.6 points, 2 rebounds, and 1.7 assists on 38.5% in shooting in 16 minutes per game for the Sixers this season. Jared McCain, it hasn't really looked like the season that he wanted, so a change of scenery is different. But here's the thing. Oklahoma City, they don't have a problem with, giving guys, like just basically trading guys away. They don't have a problem with trading up some of those assets as long as it works out well in their favor. And Jared McCain, in my opinion, is why I think Oklahoma City, they're going to be fine. Oklahoma City, more than anything else, they've already gotten a title, and all the players that they've got, their starting lineups, it's stacked as it is. It's really good. So I really think that from where we look at it with the Sixers, because they're going to need the draft picks to really shape up to what they want to be. And the Sixers, they got some ways to go. But it's not going to be a terrible situation for them. I think Jared McCain, they knew they needed to make something happen. But I just think this could be a really good thing for Oklahoma City in the end because they got depth. They got plenty of depth. They got plenty of guys. And even if an injury was to end up happening, they got somebody that can fill in up and into the shoes. Final story is we shipped up into the NHL because a big-time trade ended up happening. And it's happened up in Los Angeles as the Kings have acquired forward Artemi Panarin from the New York Rangers in exchange for Liam Greentree, a conditional 3rd-round pick in 26 and a conditional 4th-round pick in 28. And in addition to this, the Kings and Artemi Panarin have agreed to a 2-year contract extension worth the value of $11 million through the 27 and 28 season. So the Rangers are retaining 50% of Panarin's salary, which will put him at $5.8 million cap hit on the Kings' books for the season. So Artemi Panarin, he's found a new home in LA, and I think this could really work out for them, especially with the builds that they have with Quentin Byfield and several others on the offensive ends. And the New York Rangers had just been a mess. They've been a mess all season long. I couldn't even believe how this just kind of shot right back at them. I really thought that with Mike Sullivan, this was going to be different. But unfortunately for New York, they're giving up some pieces here. And And I think Chris Kreider, gone. Artemi Panarin, gone. Who knows exactly what the rest of the core and what New York is going to end up having to do. So now remember, Panarin will not be going to Milan as Russia's men's hockey team remains banned by the IIHF and could spend some time acclimating to his team and his new team in city. So Artemi Panarin, I'd say this is a real good deal, and I think it's also a really good destination. Is this season 19 goals, 38 assists, and 57 points with a plus-minus of -16. So Panarin has now found himself in a new home, and it's a new startup for him. I like with where this is heading. I think the Kings are really getting somebody really good into their roster and on their offense more than anything as the stretch continues to get tougher. All right, that's going to do it for the news.
And now, here we go. Hey everyone, it's story time. This is the Hot Press.
Denzel Johnson around the corner, former NFL safety. I'm excited for this one. So here's the deal. So another snub ended up happening in the NFL's Hall of Fame. So we already had gotten Bill Belichick, who ended up getting snubbed out of the Hall of Fame. And not only that, but now we have owner Robert Kraft, who has also been snubbed out of the Hall of Fame. So this, I think you all, and even myself included, could understand how both of these individuals really worked with themselves amongst this business. Because New England, after Tom left the building, both Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick, and I've had some very good friends who are close in the Massachusetts area, and they all know what the vibe was like. Belichick wanted Jimmy Garoppolo as his potential replacement for Tom. And I can understand that from a coach's perspective because you're trying to line up your future quarterback. I'm not pinning this up and on Bill Belichick at all. I can understand it from a coach's perspective, what that looks like and where you can see this really kind of aligning itself. And so the understanding more than anything else is that it all now lies in with what's going to be going on with Tom Brady the minute that he is available for the Hall of Fame. So you got to admit, the players, the coaches, and even in the owners, there's no balance when it comes to the Hall of Fame inductions. There's really not. There's not a balanced playing field. More than anything, the Hall of Fame is based upon your resume you've built as a player. Coaching, there's lots of great coaches. Only the great ones like Vince Lombardi, Tom Landry, Jimmy Johnson, Bill Walsh, Chuck Noll. There's been so many great coaches, John Madden, that have come into this league and have really shaped up the cultures of their organizations. And not only that, shape up to what the league is. And I look at it this way. With the reasonings behind this is, number one, as I mentioned in our last show, the reason that Bill Belichick is not a Hall of Famer, has he really looked like an approachable guy? Just himself. He feels a little more insular. He's very smart, but he's not the kind that wants to build personal relationships. You found that out the minute that he got into college. I felt like with North Carolina, I would have hoped it would have worked, but even that's not the case. And Bill Belichick now has to deal with the feeling of being snubbed as a first ballot Hall of Famer. But that doesn't mean Bill is not a Hall of Famer. He very much is. The only thing in which really knocked him was his personality, the Spygate deal, and basically with how he carries himself as a person. I mean, you think players and executives and analysts, you really think that he had the best relationships with all of them? Not many. And it was hard. It was hard to really figure out Bill. It was harder than anything else. But now with Robert Kraft now snubbed out of the Hall of Fame, this just tells you who the two elephants in the room are. Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick. They're the two biggest elephants in this room. Tom Brady is going to be a Hall of Famer, but here's the thing. Bill Belichick, winning as coach, arguably one of the best defensive minds that we've had. He is a Hall of Famer, without question. He just may not be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Robert Kraft, he has invested so much into this organization as the owner, and there's many that are like that. I mean, you look at Arthur Blank, loves Atlanta, wants the best for Atlanta to succeed, and they've been to a Super Bowl with Matt Ryan, and he's also part of their the head of football operations. So I just think with this, just tells you those two, what their relationship styles are, what they were like all throughout the timeline, and it wasn't good. It was not good whatsoever. That's the hardest, that has to be the hardest thing to wrap your brain around because of the way in which they have carried along themselves, how they've really how they really kind of gone about this relationship after Tom left. And remember, Bill, I mean, they definitely knew this was done. And Bill, and to some extent, kind of sabotaged New England more, of course, because of the tension between him and Robert Kraft. So that's part of that reason that I feel like that's why the two of them are the two biggest elephants up and into the room and that are not going to end up being Hall of Famers, at least not yet. So Seattle, in my opinion, the thing that I really do love about Seattle is Seattle as a city, and even as a football team, they never really give up. They don't really quit on themselves. And you got to think, we've watched this organization, this very organization for the Pacific Northwest, outside of, the Mariners, the Seattle Supersonics, and, now we got hockey with the Kraken. But the Seahawks, when they originated, was a new team that we were trying to figure out if football would work in the Pacific Northwest. And you got to think, Steve Largent, Cortez Kennedy, Dave Krieg. There was a lot of really good Seattle greats. And then all the way until you got to the years in which you had Matt Hasselbeck, Sean Alexander, Nate Burleson, Deion Branch, and Marcus Trufant. There's been so many great legends. And then fast forward where you have the interesting career of Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll, who comes out of college to go and coach this organization, lead them to 2 Super Bowls and win one of them with Marshawn Lynch of Beastquake. And then people that passed on Richard Sherman, Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas, all these guys were fantastic to watch. Byron Maxwell. Like, you got to think, Seattle is it's a great town. Definitely known for their seafood and known for the Emerald City and pop culture. And also mostly their Starbucks coffee. But Seattle, to me, with the Seahawks, they just, ever since, and I always say this, sometimes with teams, whenever they change uniforms for whatever reason, there's always some sort of positive or some sort of negative aura that comes with it. I mean, the minute they changed their uniforms in 2012, when they signed the deal with Nike, they got better. But mostly it was coaching and quarterback play and defense. I mean, that Legion of Boom was something else. But my big thing is, with where I look at in today's Seattle, I look at Lumen Field, and this is also going to be the home of a couple matchups that are going to be in the FIFA World Cup. And man, people are going to love Seattle. And Lumen Field, it gets packed. Every Seahawk fan that I can see up there in that stadium are invested. They love this team, but they mostly love this story with Sam Darnold. And it proves to you a few things. Like, you can be a talented quarterback, period. And I know lots of talented quarterbacks that we have had in our lifetime, from watching Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Ben Roethlisberger, Phillip Rivers, and even back then, Joe Montana, Steve Young, Dan Marino, John Elway, Dan Fouts. We had so many amazing, great quarterbacks that even for a talented quarterback, you've got to have arguably the best team top to bottom on your roster with arguably the best coaches that you have on your side. That's why I think with Seattle, with one of the young hot commodities in Mike McDonald, who defensively gritty, but also learns new technologies. Now you got to think, the old school chess player in Mike Vrabel, of course, he'll try to outsmart you in every single way possible because it's all gritty, it's all feisty, and it's all about executing plays and your roles in various ways and in various positions. Whereas for Seattle, they kind of feel a lot more like the booming tech company, which brand spanking new. They're highly talented. And that's the one thing I think in this Super Bowl, it's going to be so much fun to watch at the end of the day, that I think for Seattle gives you a lot of high hopes. But this Seattle, every time when you watch a Seahawks game, they're invested, they love it, and it's truthfully a one-of-a-kind setting. So I think this Super Bowl is going to prove many things. You're going to have the highly talented team against the art of war, mostly Sun Tzu. I mean, you got the great chess player in Mike Vrabel. So I'm excited for this one through and through. All right. Joining us here up and onto the program, former NFL safety and TCU alumni, to discuss more about this with the up-and-coming Super Bowl, Denzel Johnson joins us here up and on. Well, Denzel, here we are. It's Super Bowl 60 week. And I got to tell you, one of the biggest things is, because we're going to get to the excitement that I think we're feeling in Nashville. But first, I want to get to these two teams. So New England, we're coming in, and I mentioned this several times, is this team has an investment of believing and the gridiron. And with Mike Vrabel, he's the old school iconic chess player. He's the kind that he never wants to show his cards, but he's going to try to attack and outsmart you in several different ways, because I watched that even up in Tennessee, where he took fifth, sixth string guys, like either practice squad guys, and they turned into A ball players because it was all about what fitted the scheme. So when you see this with New England, what kind of jumps out to you? Because I know as a defensive mind, you got to have the defense, but with the calm mind of Drake May, I feel like this team could overcome anything.
Yeah, man, you're pretty much spot on. I mean, Vrabel, I mean, he's from that coaching tree from, Bill Belichick. So anything that Bill Belichick, it's just, just trickled down to him from the mind. So he's very, he's a very, very smart guy, watches a lot of film, and stuff like that just trickles down from, from the top down to the players. So he's not one of those. I mean, he can scheme up on defense, he can scheme up on offense, so he doesn't necessarily have to have those guys that you see that jumps out on you on paper, where it's like, oh, this is a first rounder, this is a second rounder, this is a guy that runs 4.2, this is, this guy right here is, I mean, he's the all pro, whatever. I mean, he doesn't necessarily have to have that. And I mean, like I said, it just comes from Bill Belichick, how he built his teams. I mean, he didn't have just straight Pro Bowls from, QB to all the way to the punter. You know what I mean? He just
Yep.
had a good group of guys that bought in to his philosophy and his game plan, week by week, and it was just a good team camaraderie that everybody had, and they believed in each other and themselves, and it was just that Warren Levitt type thing, like I'll do my job and everybody else is going to do theirs, and we'll let the chips fall as they may.
So it's interesting because now we're coming up against a team that I've kind of mentioned this is you got the old school player that has played this game for a long time, and you've now got, I feel like the new tech company, they're booming, they're rising, right? Stocks are hitting up great. And I look at Seattle, you've got the hot commodity in Mike McDonald. And the other thing is, Denzel, that cover three, and even as you see it as a former player on defense, like you look at that, how they match the cover three with Nick Amenwari and Tariq Woolen and Devon Witherspoon, that is scary nasty. And so to me, I'm like, if Drake May is going to be throwing that ball, you cannot throw into the area where that becomes very mistake prone. So when you look at Seattle, they feel young, they feel hungry, they got speed. How do you really kind of break this down? Because the other thing will move into the point about Sam Darnold, but for this team as a whole, I feel like they're the most talented from top to bottom, that just there's nothing that's getting in their way about beating you on those cover threes. And then at the same time, that's special teams with Rashid Shaheed on the kick and punt returns is another thing that's been an X factor.
Yeah, so I mean, Seattle, they're a well put together team. I mean, and they're, like you said, like they're all young too. So I mean, they got fresh legs, and just and I mean, and they execute their game plan, really, really good. Like you said, that cover three they got, it's I mean, it's working for them. It's been working for them all year. Hadn't really had too many people just, break it down and eat it up, more.
Oh, I think we might have lost him a little bit. Or we'll wait until he picks up. We'll hold up until he picks up the connection here. But man, so good. Yeah, like I said, it's a young roster. It's talented. It's fun, and they're really good speedsters. They could get everywhere. They're flying left and right. And the funny thing is that even with the couple of losses that they had, these were not terrible losses either. You think about the loss they had in week one against San Francisco, and they were turning some things up. Oh, there we go. All right, we got to back up and into here.
Oh, I'm sorry, man. I think I lost some kind of connection.
Yeah, no worries, man. But yeah, you were saying with Seattle, just kind of breaking it down, because yeah, they're young, they're feisty, they're fast, but they got guys that can get after it.
Yeah, so I think the key thing for New England is just really just just trying to identify what they can on film, on what they're in first off, pre-snap, and then sometimes, I mean, Seattle's so good. Sometimes they line up in it, sometimes they hold it, all the way until the snap and move to it, and sometimes they'll disguise and then move to it, pre-snap. So it's really just identifying what they're in, and then just figuring out what route concepts work against them, and just so because you want to move, the nickel over here, so this hole opens up. You want to move the linebacker over here, so this hole opens up. So it's just trying to figure out what route concepts affect certain players, and just trying to pick your spots.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you what, though, if Seattle wins this Super Bowl, it won't be particularly because Seattle won again another Super Bowl under their belt, and this is their fourth time being here. But I think a lot of the story is, and I think this is an inspiration to a lot of youngsters whether they're in Pee Wee football, high school ball, and even up and in college. But Sam Darnold has been such a story that I think the fact that he getting knocked around in where he was with the Jets, the first 4 games in Carolina, it felt like, okay, he might have found a spot, but then eventually came back down to earth. But then Minnesota took a chance, and unfortunately, he moved on, which I understand. You got a young quarterback. You don't want that hanging over your back. But Seattle took a chance. They rolled the dice. So, and you got to think, this is the same quarterback in the same draft class as Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Josh Rosen. And he's about to do the unthinkable. So when you think about that, how inspiring is that for a player to be at where he was and to be in the big game? And eventually, if that does happen, there's got to be an immense amount of respect put on Sam Darnold's name.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, like you said, I mean, he went to the Jets, and at that time they just weren't a good team, good organization. They were just, a losing team every single year. And trying to be a young QB and going to a team that's not so good, you don't have all the pieces around you to help you out. You may not have that veteran QB to help you out. You're navigating all that stuff by yourself. And a lot of times, whenever that happens, it's, a first year coach or, first year coordinator, stuff like that. So they're trying to figure it out too, because it's their first time. And it's just a tough situation. I think a lot of players are like Sam Darnold in a sense where, you know, I think it's just sometimes I feel like in the NFL sometimes they give up on players too fast. Because I mean a lot of people a lot of athletes they just need development. You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
and it just depends on where they come from. I mean, he came from USC. He had a lot of great players around him, and he was a great player in college. But and he had a great coach. So, but some of the flaws that you have in college, if you got a good coach, that can be covered up. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And he
100%.
doesn't necessarily get exposed until you get into the NFL. And, if they're not willing, if they can't help cover those flaws that you have up with, players and, pieces around you, they get exposed. And then everybody thinks, oh, well, he's a bust, all the talk about that. And then, you get that certain, that goes around the league like, oh, he's a bust, he's probably not doing this or he's probably not doing that. And then you get that negative vibe, going through the NFL rooms. But I mean, I'm glad that he bounced around a little bit, he figured it out, he had a few teams take a chance on him. And then I'm really glad that it's working out for him in Seattle. I don't know Sam personally, but I mean, I played with players from USC and they loved him. So, I mean,
Yeah.
props to him.
And you know what? Likable guy. And the big thing is, too, like when you land the spot that you just feel like I am a part of something bigger that they invest in you that much. The coaching does, the GM, and it's everybody in the building. And so that's the best feeling to have. And so I'm excited for this game. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. A couple of questions before letting you go. One of the things that I think this is interesting because it pertains to your position. So we're looking at the coaching carousel. And one of the coaches that stands out to me that I have a good feeling, but it's not that he's going to immensely change the culture of what they are. But Jesse Minter in Baltimore, what we watched him do with the Chargers is he rallied around this defense amongst guys like Khalil Mack and Derwin James. So now he's going to Baltimore, where in the first 5 weeks, that defense looked atrocious until they had to make a move. And then in 5 weeks, they weren't even giving up more than 20. So I feel like, and the biggest step is he's got Kyle Hamilton now as his star piece. So when you think about that, how important when it comes to a defensive-minded coach that now is going into a bigger role, how important of a chess piece that is when you've got a star-studded safety that can vocalize all from the secondary and then even spot and helping a little more with just his linebackers in the front seven to really see run games, quarterback play. How important is that, especially for a coach that's geared towards that chess piece?
Yeah, man, it's very, very, very important. I mean, because number one, he's one of those guys that don't come off the field, whether it's first, second, third down, third and long, fourth and short. You can keep him on the field, the whole game, and you can put him in a lot of different scenarios where he has an advantage. So I mean, you can line up at safety. He can be in the box safety. He could be middle of the field safety. He could be linebacker. He could rush off the edge for a blitz. I mean, you name it. I mean, he could man up on a tight end or whatever, whatever you need him to do. I mean, it's because it's like you don't have to worry about him. You know what I mean? Okay, he's going to do his job. He's going to do this. If he's blitzing, he's going to get pressure. So cute quarterback only has a certain amount of time to throw the ball, so we can play this coverage behind him. It's just, I mean, and now how the NFL is now, you got all these hybrid tight ends, so you have to have a player like that just that holds all those hybrid tight ends at bay. And I mean, Kyle Hamilton, he one of my favorite players right now. I mean, just because he's so versatile, and I mean, he reminds me of myself. I mean, he's a lot bigger, a lot better, but he reminds me of myself of how I played in college because I played in a 4-2-5. So I was
Yep.
that hybrid safety, the box safety that's going to cover, that's going to blitz, that's going to do everything. So, I mean, players like that, I mean, I admire them because, I mean, it's a tough job. And I'm willing to bet, like I said, I've never met Kyle Hamilton. I'm willing to bet he's one of the smartest defenders on their defense too, just to be able to know what everybody else is doing and doing what he's doing. I mean, you gotta have to have football IQ to do that.
And it's crazy because it's like a multitasker. You really have to do everything. You got to tackle, you got to cover. But I love those 4-2-5s. It's very effective, especially in red zone defense, because it's like you're trying to shut down every passing lane. So every time I watched that with Jesse Minter, I was like, he's trying to basically suffocate the quarterback because there's no passing lane and limiting you to either 3 points or no points at all. So Tennessee, unfortunately, and I had a former Tennessee Titan by the name of Blaine Bishop on the program when we talked about Brian Callahan. It wasn't a fit. It felt weird, wonky, but Tennessee could feel uplifted today because of the fact that Robert Saleh is now the new head coach in this organization. They've got a competent offensive coordinator who I really think with Brian Dable, I watched him even with Buffalo and even up and in college, where he helped out with Josh Allen and helped out in Alabama's offense. But even so, too, their defensive coordinator is a pretty interesting one. So it's not like Saleh has to do so much of the work. He's got a complimentary guy that knows the work that can make it simplified. So you think we watched this New England team. They went 4-13 last year, and they're in the Super Bowl. But I look at Tennessee. I feel like there is a gut-wrenching regret of letting this guy Mike Vrabel leave the building. Now you got Saleh. Does it feel like there's some similarities here that I feel Tennessee fans are like, this is what needs to happen and where you shouldn't have changed this years ago, and hopefully this could really build around a star quarterback like Cam Ward?
Yeah, so yeah, I like Robert Saleh, man. I mean, he's a good, intense guy. And you say similarities, yeah, I can definitely see it because they're both pretty young. They'll both get out there and show you what you got to do. I mean, I remember times Vrabel. I mean, he's picking up the blocking pad, trying to say, "Hey, come on, let's get this rep in." I'm like, "You gonna hold the pad?" He's like, "Yeah, come on." I'm like, "All right," but I mean, yeah, Saleh, man, he's a good coach, man. I mean, he has a good staff around him, and I actually am a believer in Cam Ward. I mean, I watched him play when he was in college. I had a cousin that went to University Incarnate Word, and that's really whenever I found out about Cam Ward when he was at Incarnate Word. And he moved on and went to Houston and stuff like that. But I've been watching Cam for a long time. I mean, I think it's just one of those things, like I said about Sam Darnold, man. You just can't give up on him too early. Put pieces around him, and that's not necessarily always put players around him. It is about putting a good coaching staff around him, which I feel like that's what Tennessee's doing right now. I did feel like they moved on from Vrabel too quick. And then, they got rid of Derrick Henry and stuff like that. But they're on the right track with this hire, 100%. They're definitely on the right track.
Yeah, and it's all about getting the star players because I mean Cam Ward, I'm with you on that. He's very talented. He's got the accurate arm and he can evade out of pressure. The only thing is you just got to give him some help. Got to get him some weapons. You got to give him somebody and even a healthy run game that's consistent that can help him to make the creative plays and different scheme styles. So I hope that with Tennessee, because again, I was really hoping that this team would have had years of the successes and even watching them back then, like have really good teams, physical, and they're in your face. That's what I loved about it. And so hopefully I could see the same replications with Robert Saleh. So I'm excited for this hire as well. So Super Bowl 60, who do you got? At the end of the day, Patriots or the Seattle Seahawks?
Oh man. If I want to go safe pick, I guess I'd have to go Seattle. Right
All
now,
right.
they're just rolling. They look really good on offense and defense and special teams. They look, they're rolling right now. I feel like they got it for right now. I feel like they got it.
All right. Yeah, I think I'm going to be leaning the same way you are, man. I feel like it's a talented team. They're ruthless. So I think it's going to be a fun one. I expect this one. I don't expect it to run up the score, but I do expect it to be as competitive as possible with just quarterback play. And then at the end of the day, coaching and chess play. Denzel, appreciate you for coming on by, my friend. Enjoy it. It's going to be a fun weekend. And I can't wait to see what the headliners will be up and on Monday morning. Enjoy it, and we'll see you soon.
All right, man. Thanks for having me on, man. I'll see you soon.
Absolutely, man. Man, yeah, I think this is a good thing for Tennessee at the end of the day with Robert Saleh. I think with the hire and then not to mention the coordinator choices, they know what they're doing. They understand the task. They understand what's happening. And so I really do think this was a really good hire at the end of the day. All right. Well, it's usually the one that for the entirety of the season, this NFL season has been fantastic. Crazy, emotional, and lots of surprises all throughout the year. So it comes down to Super Bowl 60. New England Patriots and the Seattle Seahawks. So as you see the backgrounds behind me, I'm making a choice. Who do I feel will hoist the Vince Lombardi Trophy for Super Bowl 60 in San Francisco, California, in Levi Stadium? I've got my heart set on the Seattle Seahawks. I feel as though this team is physical, they're fast, they're young, so much on the table with as far as storylines go. Sam Darnold in this position. Amazingly, a year, and it is a 2018 draftee. It surprised a lot of people. But Seattle, a great defense. They're fast on the pass rush. I think that this game could be very, very ruthless pretty quickly. But that's the one thing New England has to get on top of, is that Seattle will come at you with all brute force, but that's also where you got to be on cruise control and manage it the best way possible. And I think the Seattle Seahawks, we're going to see that in this Super Bowl. I think you're going to see a ton of different quarterback play from Drake May and Sam Darnold. I'm going to go with the Seattle Seahawks. And looking at the odds in this Super Bowl, because this game, whether it gets out of hand or it gets exciting, but the line is on Seattle at 3.5, and I like it. I'm going to go with the Seahawks here to win and cover 28-23. Seahawks are victorious in hoisting their second Super Bowl trophy in franchise history on their fourth appearance in franchise history. So there you go, Seattle. Choice side pick. I mean, again, I think it's going to be interesting with the coaching play of Mike Vrabel, shut down defenses. I mean, I think this game, however it's going to be quite a pendulum swing left and right, but I'm excited for it. But that will conclude the NFL season at the end of the day this weekend. Appreciate everybody for joining on. Shout out to Denzel Johnson for joining us here on the program. Loved his insights and absolutely loved how pumped he is with the Tennessee Titans hire of Robert Saleh. Appreciate all of you guys for being here with us all week long. As the NFL season comes to a close, we appreciate with you guys hanging with us all season long. It's been a great year, and we still have more sports talk to talk about around the corner. NBA moves, NHL, Major League Baseball around the corner. So it doesn't just stop from there. We appreciate all of you guys for hanging with us. Take care of yourselves. Enjoy Super Bowl 60. Patriots, Seahawks. I got my money on the Seahawks. We'll see what happens. Take care of yourselves. Enjoy it. And happy Super Bowl Sunday extravaganza. Take care, everyone.